Bitcoin is trading at around $104,000, and I believe that the top might actually be in already at 112,000, maybe one more higher high, and this is why. So it is June 2nd, it is a new month, it is also a new week, and I want to share with you this big picture update on why I'm turning bearish here. And my last several videos, if you've been following, I'm just skeptical of this bull trend continuing much higher, like a lot of people say. Now, for context, if you don't know me, I've been basically updating these markets since 2017. I've been through these boom and bust cycles, and I've been through 2 cycle tops and 2 bear markets. And the time to get greedy when you want to start buying is at the end of a bear market, and you want to start getting cautious towards the end of a bull market. Now, calling bottoms and tops, you never know for sure. But once you've had the majority of a move, the likelihood of a change in direction becomes favorable, right? So I was bullish on Bitcoin in January of 2023. So around about over here, this area over here, I started turning bullish. That was after a massive bear market, right? That's when I want to start buying. And this is the area when you have the best odds of just being able to buy spot and hold. But now, guys, we are 13 months after the last Bitcoin halving, and there are all sorts of signs, in my opinion, that we are getting closer to the top. Now, could things continue higher? Yes, it's always a possibility. But we have had basically 2.5 years of upside only. And I think if you were early enough, which, if you were following me, around 2023, January, if you were able to buy, you would be able to have multiple X. Even just buying Bitcoin, you could have bought here around the $20,000 level. If you sell at 100,000, you made a 5X on your money. If you did that with significant size, it is fantastic as a return. Sure, could it go to 120, 140? It could, but what if it doesn't, right? A 5X is already very, very nice. So let me share with you here, based on the charts and the data, why I think the top is in. And you can basically deduce it from this very chart in front of us already. So 2021, this is a weekly chart. You can see exactly what happened here. In 2021, we had a deviation above with a weekly bear div, drop back below, and that was the start of the bear market. We have something similar here now, in my opinion, and you can very clearly see here a similar setup where we had a deviation here above these highs and we are dropping back below. There's a weekly RSI bear divergence, and for those people saying divergences don't play out, it's never a guaranteed thing, but you can see even here there was a divergence between these 2 highs, right, from this high to here in the same way, and that divergence there just gave us the pullback from 109 to 74,000. So that gave us alone almost a $35,000 pullback. So typically what happens with these RSI divergences, especially on the higher time frames, is they at least tend to give a pullback like we saw in this most recent drop, if not a complete reversal, as we are seeing here in the previous cycle. Now, obviously, you'll only know in hindsight what it is going to be, but I believe now that we had the divergence, the initial pullback, even more of a scam distribution squeeze in the same way as this. And for now, especially as long as we are back below here, it was a deviation above and a drop back below, I think we have to assume that this could very well lead to a much deeper drop, if not the top of the bull cycle. There's also all sorts of other things that you can look at for potential top indications. I believe that a lot of those on-chain models aren't valid anymore, simply because the whole flow of liquidity into crypto and money into crypto is basically changed due to the ETFs and the institutional money, right? So all the models that show extreme overvaluation and stuff like that, I believe that those might not be valid anymore to look at for tops. What we can look at is the obvious sentiment type of stuff where, so many politicians and well-known people are saying all in on Bitcoin, it's going to the moon. It seems to be consensus that Bitcoin is going to $1 million within the next 3 to 5 years. So many people are literally saying that Bitcoin is going to be $1 million by ABC, right? it doesn't make sense to me. And sure, it could continue, but look at the charts. Look at these divergences. This is on the weekly time frame. Okay, so in theory, if this was to play out, we could see if we take the bar pattern over here, I mean, if we can see something like that, you can see what happened here. It went below the low over there. So if we're looking at this, we're probably looking at slightly below the low over here, maybe even. And that could take us somewhere between 50 and 30,000. I think 30 might be a little bit on the low end, but you never know if things get really bad and there's like big players that are forced to liquidate somewhere over here by the end of 2026. I don't know. It's a possibility, guys. It's a possibility. The charts are looking like this. So let me show you here too. If I change this, we just had the monthly also. Okay, so we change it to monthly over here, and you can see we have massive divergences here on monthly also. Like you can see here, there's just, besides the fact that there's an actual divergence on monthly here, like this mini divergence, it's the same on the weekly, right? So we had this higher high, and it's done in the same way that we had it in 2021. It's very similar here. Okay, we had that monthly divergence and the bear market followed. But what we also have, which I think could be very, very concerning for the near-term future of Bitcoin, could be the fact that we have a divergence between the entire 2 4-year cycles on the monthly chart, which is something, could be concerning. I don't know. Time will tell, right? Like I could be saying here, like, oh, it's maybe the end of Bitcoin and it does go to $1 million. It'd be great if it goes to $1 million. I'm not saying, like I'm anti-crypto or anti-Bitcoin or anything like that. I'm just trying to look at the charts objectively and be like, look, this is what's happening, guys. We see this. We've had a massive run since the beginning of 2023. We are here. There's very big similarities between 2021 cycle top and here. We're 13 months after the halving, which is within potential top cycle territory. We have this massive divergence here. We have all these other top signals. I'll make another video about that. But I was saying, like all these people all in on Bitcoin saying it's going to the moon. Michael Saylor just continuing to leverage whatever he's doing, which feels like a giant Ponzi, in my opinion. And at some point it's going to either get wrecked or he's going to be forced to sell or whatever the case is. I don't really know. But at gut feel, it feels Ponzi-like what he's doing. Too much leveraging is never a good thing. And then we see all these other companies starting to come in and do the same as Saylor. And you know how well that ends. Why were they all not doing it at the bottom? Why are they all doing it here? If they were all doing it here and going all in on their leveraging, selling their preferred stock, buying Bitcoin as much as they could at the lows, okay, cool. That's a bet we can understand. But doing it here after a 2.5-year run when we have these 4-year cycles, right? Look how this is working. Why are people only starting to do it at the top? It's because they always do that. People buy the top and they sell the bottom. They start getting euphoric. Oh, it's going to $1 million. And they start buying the top and then go down and they get wrecked because they probably do not have that same conviction or the ability or the desire to hold through a 50 or 60% drawdown, which inevitably happens every bear market. So this is my thoughts. I think that it could be pretty bad for Bitcoin. And there's also just talks about a 4 times 4-year cycle, so a 16-year cycle. Bitcoin's been around for 16 years, and that we've had 4 mini cycles within a larger 16-year cycle. And if we turn into a bear market after a 16-year bull market, that's what I'm saying. This divergence here could be hinting at that. And what if this is some sort of complete top that takes us back to these lows or lower, and that might actually take 4 years as a bear market instead of the usual 2 that we've had before, maybe one day, assuming everything survives and Bitcoin continues to be the magical internet money that everyone perceives it to be. What if we get something like this? I'm just giving you some suggestions here, some ideas. We don't know, right? Maybe it keeps going up. Maybe it goes to the moon. But the fact that, like very high level people are just saying, oh, Bitcoin's going to the moon, makes me question everything that's happening here. The fact that we haven't had an altcoin season is because there's 35 million coins or more. The majority of them are scams and rugs. Yeah, so I'm not very optimistic for Bitcoin or crypto in the near future at this point in time. And that's what the charts are showing. I would love to be bullish, guys. I was bullish at January of 2023 after the bear market. I was looking for a much higher, and that worked out. And now I'm just seeing the opposite. I'm following the charts, and I'm just going with a gut feel here also of what I feel about the sentiment towards crypto and everything that's going on. And look, if you bought the end of 2022 or early 2023, you're up 5x on Bitcoin right now. That's phenomenal, right? And you could have had some nice runs on certain alts, not all of them. Some of them actually did less than Bitcoin itself. So I guess the lesson from the previous cycle here was that if you only just bought Bitcoin at the bear lows and held it till the highs, you could have made like a 5 or a 6x, depending on how extreme, but call it a 5x. Let's say you didn't get the absolute bottom and the absolute top, but 20K to 100K, it's 5x, and that's very, very nice. So, you know, if you're able to buy it back at lower, wherever that's going to be, we'll obviously update if we do get a bear market, maybe 50, maybe 40K. Maybe if this does play out, I would suggest, or I would expect that this is probably in combination with a giant market crash and recession, because I doubt we'd get this low, maybe ever, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. You know, maybe it only does like 50K or something. Maybe it only sweeps these lows over here and it doesn't go as deep as this. Maybe it does something like this and then continues higher, and somewhere in the 50 to 30K range seems realistic for a bear market, in my opinion. But don't rule it out if things get really bad or something unexpected comes, which it always does, guys. In the first bear market, the ICOs got wrecked and BitMEX got wrecked. In the second one, it was FTX and Terra Luna. We don't know what the next bear market is going to reveal, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be stuff that people didn't expect on a very large scale, whether an exchange, whether it's some sort of fraud with MicroStrategy or other players, whether it's fraud with paper BTC and not actual spot BTC. So in other words, you know, people trading the spot BTC, but in paper terms on exchanges because people aren't withdrawing it. So it makes it seem like there's more BTC than there really is, or less. And there can be all sorts of stuff. I don't want to go into that too deep. There's all sorts of threads on there and conspiracies. But basically, if we're looking at the charts, you know, bearish RSI divergences usually result in either pullbacks or complete market tops, especially on higher time frames like monthly and weekly and 3-day. So in my opinion, you know, that's basically what I share here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And like it's not about nailing the absolute top. It's just about realistically looking at what is happening. And if you are not considering the fact or the potential here that it could be a cycle top and that things are looking toppy, you know, you need to have reasoning for that. Because I'm showing you here on the charts, technically, bearish RSI divergences, so many similarities. And you can say, oh, Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Why? Why is it going to $1 million? I hope it does, right? It's nice. It's good to have exposure. And if it goes to $1 million, great. But what if it doesn't? And what if this is a 4x4 16-year cycle top and we're in for like a 4-year bear market across crypto? I don't know. Just be prepared for whatever opportunities come your way, whatever possibilities. And again, you can still trade this, right? Doesn't matter. If you reduce your exposure, you can take spot long positions, you can take leverage long and short positions in and out. You don't have to be fully allocated to the market at all times, especially when the market looks like this. If you need a place to trade, I use Blowfin Exchange, link in the description down below. Gives you a nice welcome bonus and makes you eligible for all sorts of competitions, prizes, giveaways, and deposit bonuses. So if you want to trade crypto, Blowfin Exchange, use the link in the description down below.